Senator John Kennedy gets fined $500 by Judge Thomas, but Kennedy turns the whole court against him. The gavel slammed twice its sharp crack, echoing through the cavernous courtroom like a thunderclap. Order in the court. High above, behind a towering mahogany bench, Judge Clarence Thomas presided, his face an unreadable mask, his voice as cold and unyielding as the marble pillars that framed the chamber. Senator John Kennedy, he declared, each word deliberate, heavy with intent. You have defied this court's orders. Repeatedly, this body is authorized to fine you $500 million. The air in the room seemed to vanish. Reporters in the back, their pens poised like startled birds, froze mid-scribble. The gallery, packed with onlookers, held its breath. $500 million. The number wasn't just a penalty, it was a guillotine crafted not to punish, but to obliterate. It was a sum designed to end Senator Kennedy's career, to silence his voice in the Senate, to send a message to anyone who dared challenge the system. The attorneys, seasoned and stoic, exchanged glances, their eyes betraying not shock, but disbelief. The figure was symbolic, a public execution draped in the robes of justice. Yet John Kennedy, the senior senator from Louisiana, sat perfectly still in his chair. No twitch, no sigh, no flicker of fear crossed his weathered face. His sharp blue eyes locked onto Thomas, a quiet defiance radiating from his posture, his hands folded calmly on the table before him. The courtroom, grand and imposing, seemed to shrink under the weight of his stillness. Slowly, Kennedy rose, his tailored suit, crisp, his movements measured like a man who'd faced storms and walked through them unscathed. His southern drawl, rich and deliberate, cut through the silence like a blade. "Are you finished, Your Honor?" A gasp rippled through the gallery, sharp and involuntary. Thomas leaned forward, his eyes narrowing, the gavel still in his grip. "Excuse me," he said, his voice low, edged with irritation. Kennedy didn't flinch. "I said, are you finished, sir? Because I'm not." The courtroom buzzed, a low hum of shock, swelling into murmurs of anticipation. Reporters scribbled furiously now, their pens scratching like a chorus of cicadas. Kennedy reached into his briefcase, pulling out a single folder, slim, unassuming, with a plain yellow tab that belied its weight. He walked to the clerk's desk with the calm of a man delivering a routine memo, not a bomb that could upend the room. "Please enter this into the record," he said, handing it over with no urgency, as if returning a library book long overdue. The clerk, a young woman with wide eyes, fumbled the folder, her hands trembling slightly. What is this?" she stammered. Kennedy's voice was steady, almost gentle, but it carried the weight of certainty. Facts, sworn affidavits, financial records, internal memos. All dated, all verified. He turned back to Thomas, whose knuckles whitened around the gavel. "With respect, Justice Thomas, these documents show you hold financial interests in 3 of the 4 private entities that lobbied for this fine to be imposed." The room shook not with sound, but with realization. A reporter's tablet clattered to the floor, the noise sharp against the stunned silence. A man in the gallery stood, then sat as if the gravity of Kennedy's words had pulled him back down. Thomas's face paled, his jaw tightening, but his voice remained defiant. "This is absurd," he said, the words clipped, fraying at the edges. Kennedy didn't waver, his gaze unyielding. "It's math, sir. Simple connections. You should have recused yourself from this case, but you didn't. And now we know why." The gavel slammed again, a desperate bid for control. Silence. Thomas barked, his voice echoing off the walls, but the silence was already broken. Kennedy's eyes never left him. "The silence is over, Your Honor. You've turned this courtroom into a weapon, But you forgot something. I don't scare easy. The murmurs in the gallery grew louder, no longer gasps, but a swelling tide of support. A court officer stepped forward, uncertain, his hand hovering near his belt. Another judge on the bench, older and grayer, leaned over, whispering urgently to his colleague. Thomas shook his head, his authority cracking like thin ice under a boot. "This court will recess," he declared, his voice strained, almost brittle. Kennedy didn't sit. He turned to the gallery, his gaze sweeping over the crowd, reporters, citizens, aides, and onlookers who'd come expecting a spectacle but found themselves witnessing history. "If you've ever been told to sit down, shut up and take it," he said, his drawl slow and deliberate. "Pay attention now. This isn't about me. It's about what happens when someone refuses to bow to those who think they're untouchable." A man in the gallery stood, his face resolute. Then a woman, her hands clasped tightly. A row of observers rose, silent but defiant, their presence a quiet rebellion against the weight of the robes behind the bench. Kennedy turned back to Thomas. "You want to fine me $500 million to teach me a lesson? Here's mine: never walk into a room where the rules are written to silence you. Rewrite the rules." Thomas's hand hovered over the gavel, but he didn't strike. The clerk, still clutching Kennedy's folder, stood abruptly, her voice trembling but clear. "Your Honor, I've reviewed the documents. They appear legitimate, detailed." Another judge leaned over, his whisper sharp and urgent. A third reached for the phone on the bench, his fingers moving quickly. Thomas's composure